All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show where you have the trio of me, Jay, and B-Dubs in the house. All three have had multiple takedowns on DraftKings and FanDuel in multiple sports. But today, of course, we're covering the NBA. And before I talk to you, Jay, and B-Dubs about how you're feeling about the slate, let's look at last night. How did y'all do on last night?
We got so many great calls, especially if you tuned into the show last night. However, Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges had different plans for us. Due to them, it wasn't as good as it could have been, but it is what it is.
Yeah, if I would have kept that 60% cap on Bridges, I think it would have been an easy takedown, but instead it was just a few lines that were in the top competing. Jay, did you play last night?
I played last night, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately. I knew better because usually when I do great and the day after, I usually just it's like a slump. So as expected last night, it was trash for me last night.
Speaking of you doing great, you got second place in the mini the night before last. I was going to talk about it when we get to the first game because you had some interesting plays from the Kings that night that I'm curious to see how you feel about on this slate. But yeah, you definitely had to bounce back in the wrong direction. But hey, after the night you had, that's okay, I think. Well, let's talk through the 50K winning lineup. You'll hear a lot of the guys we talked about yesterday, like Brandon mentioned. Banton was in there. Sharp was in there. Denny Avdija was in there. Those were the top three core plays we mentioned on the show. They all crushed. And then you saw Precious Achiuwa make it in that lineup and Mitchell Robinson together. Brandon, I'm pretty sure you had both of those guys as core plays. Was that right or am I wrong?
Precious was core, but Mitchell was pretty close. I think I had like close to 50%.
And then Devin Booker made this line. He was a leverage play for us last night. Draymond Green was there, and Stephen Curry was there, who was a pre-lock show leverage play that we talked about. That Golden State Warriors and Memphis game was one of the three that we were like, you have to target. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect Steph to go off like that, but he definitely came through. So, yeah, that was last night. Let's look at today. Let's make it even better. But good to see everyone. Cedric, David, yeah. We won't forget the Hammer game, especially with Jay on. We can't. David, Kid, good to see y'all. Dixon, yeah, those New York bums, they can't be dead to me yet, but they were close. They were close. Appreciate you, Coffee. Hope you're doing all right, man. Starting off, we have the Kings going up against the Wizards. This game, I feel like, is a good representation of this slate. Brandon, how are you feeling about the slate in general, just to kind of give us a little bit of a overview?
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show, and it's a pretty ugly slate. Not gonna lie. Most of the games are predicted to be a blowout, and then we got Denver being difficult as ever, with pretty much the whole team being questionable. So that throws a wrench in how you want to attack the slate. But we'll walk through it like we normally do and do what we do. So
yeah. I mean, or at least I can speak for myself. I've had multiple takedowns on slates I haven't liked. So it doesn't mean anything.
Very true.
But it just means I'm a little bit less excited going into it. Jay, how are you feeling about it?
Hey, I'm kind of feeling the same way. Usually in slates like this, I don't get real fancy. I kind of just ride the wave and kind of pivot whenever I can. But like these slates, like you said, that's when you get your money makers for that bum who comes out of nowhere and just start doing all-star stuff. So I'm excited and nervous at the same time.
Exactly. These slates where I don't feel great is when I lean on the DS a little extra heavy. It's like, all right, DS, take us to the promised land. But for me, I feel okay about this slate. The Nuggets were they went to double overtime last night, and so that's why a lot of these guys are questionable. I'll feel a lot better once we get that news and we're all just playing a shit ton of Nuggets and Spurs, and I'll feel good at that point. But until then, I'm a little nervous to overly commit to some of these early games that are just really bad game environments from a spread perspective, at least. So starting off for the Kings, we have not a lot of injury news here, unless I'm missing it. Who's standing out for you here, Brandon?
I surprisingly don't like too many people from the side of the ball, considering the matchup. Sabonis, I do love. Outside of Jokic, of course, if he does play, Sabonis is probably my favorite pay up, and he's currently a core play. We just know how trash Washington's defense is, and definitely be a spot where he can do really well. And then I wanted to take a shot on at least one more guy, and I just picked DeRozan. He's been a bit more consistent when you compare him to Levine, who's in a similar price range, and then even consider Keegan. I didn't completely rule him out, but he's as inconsistent as ever. So DeRozan is just somebody I felt somewhat comfortable playing on this side of the ball too. So I did put a 10% min on him, and then I don't think I'm getting anyone else. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of DeRozan, he was the one that helped Jay have that top line. First, Jay, was it Monday? Yeah, today's Wednesday. So on Monday, what kind of got you on DeRozan? Was it really the fact that it was the hammer game and you were trying to force more exposure to that in particular, or did you see something that no one else really saw?
So I'm not gonna lie, DeRozan, I was surprised to see it in that lineup. I'm not gonna lie, it was nothing special I did. The DS was DSing, and I think I kind of pivoted a little bit because I kept on. I was like, I had to go, so I just set it up, and then I was like, oh shoot, I got DeRozan, and I'm like, okay. I was nervous at first, but then when I seen it, I'm like, okay, I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't do nothing special.
Hey, I love the honesty. Sometimes the DS just comes through. For who are you seeing, or any of the Kings showing up for you so far in your lines?
Yeah, so as of right now, the Kings are one of the teams I'm using just to basically get the leverage on ownership because I don't think they're gonna be that highly owned. So Sabonis is right now is one of my top for the Kings, like B-Dub said, and Ellis right now is the second one that I have from the Kings. So Keon Ellis and Sabonis are my two highest for right now from that team.
Okay. Yeah, for me, Sabonis is showing up as a core play as well. I'm not overly committed to that. I'm considering lowering it just a little bit because there's some other plays I like later on the slate, and I want to have a bit more flexibility when I late swap. But for now, I'm comfortable with it. Not going to over tinker or try not to. And then Keegan Murray is the other king I'm looking at. Just stood out a little bit for me in the sim model, and so I put a 5% min on him. I don't think it's a bad call taking a shot on DeRozan or Levine in this spot. We know how bad the Kings are defensively at every single position. And so I like those calls. It's just ultimately I don't think I'm going to pull the trigger on the Kings tonight outside of the two guys I mentioned. On the other side of this game, we have the Washington Wizards going up against the Kings. And for the Wizards, they're relatively healthy. Keyshawn George is out. Middleton's out. Marcus Smart is out. None of that really changed too much besides Justin's a little bit more interesting in those spots. But Jay, are you seeing any Wizards show up for you?
Yeah, I got a couple. So the way I'm setting it up is if you're not playing at least 25 minutes or higher on the Wizards, which we really can't predict like that, but I have Jordan Poole and Saw. Those are my two highest right now out of my 150. That's coming up. So I kind of like those two Wizards and AJ Johnson a little bit.
Yep. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, it's only two people for me here. Sar, I put an 8% min on him just to match the field. He's had a couple back-to-back kind of lousy games, but I think this is a spot where he can potentially bounce back. So just want to make sure I have some of him based on overall how he's been playing towards the end of the season. And then Vukcevic is a sim model play for me. We know when he gets the minutes, he can definitely smash. And is a good points per minute guy, so I wanted to be slightly over the field on him, and I put a 10% min. And I was getting a couple of these other cheapies, but not too thrilled on them. yeah, they dropped quite a bit now. Carrington at 1%, and then AJ Johnson at 1%.
Dixon, I haven't heard this rumor at all, and it makes no real sense to me unless Cat plans on playing the 4 a little bit. Have y'all heard about this? Sabonis to the Knicks probably in the offseason?
No,
About that at all, man.
not at all.
Sounds like something. Not. What was that, Jay?
I said I hope not.
Yeah, that's weird. The Kings would be stranded without him. But for me, with the Wizards, I like the Sar play, Brandon. I did an 8% min. I couldn't commit to the full 10, but I like it. Tristan is showing up for me a little bit. I put a 7% min, kind of like you, Brandon Sim model. He stood out. He's just super efficient with his minutes, and so I just wanted to make sure he was in the mix. I don't hate taking a shot on Justin at 5,300 in this matchup. I have a like on him, but he's not showing up in very many lines at all, and so I'm not going to force the issue there. And then AJ Johnson's showing up in about 9% of my lines, so I'm right around field weight exposure there. He's just a value option. He's not overly special, or really a mid-range value option, to say the least. All right, next up we have a game that's a little hard for me to wrap my head around. The spread, at least. I mean, I know Brunson's not playing, but there's not too much injury news for the Knicks outside of that. I mean, McBride's out. That helps some of their guards more. Cameron Payne's out, but not a big name. They still have Cat, Hart, OG, Bridges. Going up against the Cavs, though, is a tough matchup. Not one we typically look to target. Brandon, what are you doing here?
Yeah, this isn't one of my favorite teams to attack tonight. Only thing I did manually was put a 15% min on Dallon Wright. He's just seeing a lot of minutes with most of their guards missing, and has been pretty solid. So he's a value play I didn't want to forget about. And then I was getting exposure to OG. Let's see where he's at. He dropped down to 5%, and then Bridges at 1%. So I'm completely fine being there with those guys. I don't feel the need to force them in.
Yeah, are you seeing anyone show up for you, Jay?
Yeah, so kind of on the same boat. OG right now, I'm having about 7% OG in my lineups, but Cat with all these people, especially Bronson, Payne, McBride, all that out, I wanted to try to force a couple of Cat, but right now, like I said, I'm not gonna try to force anything like B-Dub said. I'm just gonna let it ride and see what happens later on when I refresh.
Yeah, I thought about Cat too, kind of just wanting some exposure to this game, but against actual defenders that are never mind. I'm not gonna take shots on Cat today, but yeah. I just couldn't do it. But the rest of this team, I love going back to guys who hurt me the night before because no one else is gonna play them. It doesn't make a ton of sense from like a matchup standpoint, but the game environment should be these two teams playing at a pretty quick pace, at least at the start of it. And we've seen guys like Bridges and Hart come through before in tough matchups. So I have a 12% min on Bridges. I don't trust him, obviously, after yesterday, but he can shoot a 3. And if he gets hot, this could be a little bit of a sneaky spot for him. And then Hart, I like a little bit more. And so I have a 7% min on him, actually giving me a little bit of leverage there. So those are the two players I forced exposure to. Wright is showing up in about 20% of my lines right now. I do expect that to only continue to go down. And then OG is showing up in 8% of my lines, and I don't care enough about him to force exposure there. So getting a little weird there with the Knicks, but I like it.
Yeah.
Next up, we have what were you going to say, Jay?
Quick question about the Cat thing, right? Because looking at it, the next person next to Cat is Tatum, Shai, and Jokic. And we don't have the news on Jokic yet. So I don't know why I got this weird feeling about Cat. But again, I want to mess it up.
Oh, I think we lost him. We lost Jay. He was going strong and then he froze up. Not the best image to freeze at. Let me see if I can take him off for a little bit until he can come back. But sounds like Jay was thinking about taking a shot on Cat.
It sounded like he was changing his mind on it.
I still can't do it.
Yeah,
but
I don't think I can do it either.
If it comes through, I get it. Next up, we have the other side of this game, the Cavs, who have very high ownership, and that's what surprised me. What are you thinking here, Brandon?
Yeah, so this is a weird spot for me because this is another team that I'm not really passionate about, but it's so easy to get to just because of what some of the value we have, like in some of these other games, mainly the Spurs value. But guys like Donovan Mitchell, I'm getting quite a bit of him. He's currently a core play. And then I'm getting a good mixture of Mobley. I think I had some Garland, but he fell quite a bit. Let me see. Yeah, Mobley 19%, so pretty much right at fill weight. And yeah, Garland did fall 2%. So again, this isn't a team that I was really passionate about. I'm just kind of letting the DS decide what it wants to do here.
Yeah, for me, I'm with you in the fact that Donovan Mitchell's just showing up by himself. I don't feel overly passionate about it, but he's there. Mobley's showing up right around field weight exposure, 18%. And then when I was looking at the sim model, Allen was showing up just as much, a slightly lower percentage than SAR, but still had similar upside. And so at 2% ownership, I put a 3% min on him just to have a little bit of exposure, but nothing too crazy. Jay, good to have you back. Are you seeing any of the Cavs show up for you? It seemed like Donovan Mitchell was showing up for both of us, and Evan Mobley was showing up a good bit too.
Let me see about. I don't know what happened. My internet just bumped me out.
It happens.
Let me see. Right now, yeah, I got for the Cleveland. I got Mobley right now, which is my highest. Okay. I'm actually kind of high on the Mobley. I'm at 20% on Mobley.
Yeah. Are you seeing any Mitchell show up for you?
Definitely. I'm at 13% on Mitchell right now. So with this highest pace, I'm glad I got a couple of Mitchell. Well, I had to put a kind of a door, a light on Mitchell.
Agreed. All right. And then, appreciate it, David. Looks like FVV, Fred VanVleet, is out. We'll get there here soon. But first, we'll look at the Hornets going up against the Pacers. Y'all know how I feel about the Hornets these days. They're not a fun team to see show up on the slate. Nick Smith is out. That's really the only thing that matters here. Brandon, are you looking at any of the Hornets tonight?
I wasn't at first, but I thought about it, and I ended up putting a 6% min on KJ Simpson.
Okay.
Kind of the reasons I mentioned with Delon Wright, with their guards out. He's been playing a lot of minutes, and he's been decent. I definitely don't like that price increase, and definitely wish he was in the 4K range, but he was popping on the sim model, and I do like playing against the Pacers. Should be a pretty fast-paced game, so I think this is a sneaky spot for him. Outside of that, I can't get anywhere else.
Nice. And Mega Royal, Fred VanVleet was questionable today, so there was a chance he was going to return. Are you seeing any of the Hornets show up for you, Jay? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm seeing a couple of them show up. Not that many, but I had to force some of the KJ Simpson too. I kind of like that one, so I put a 4 min on Simpson. But right now, my highest is kind of Bridges. Right now, Miles Bridges on the Hornets.
Yeah, and he's another low-owned play you had on Monday too. Bridges came through for you.
Yep. Hopefully, it works out again today.
Mega Royal, that's shady. Fred VanVleet, yeah, he's basically been a little low-key checked out. That's wild. For me, I like the KJ Simpson call. I wasn't on that, but I'll follow you. I put a 6% min on him. Bridges, I can't do. He did crush last time out, but the minutes inconsistency at that price tag is just a risk I'm not willing to take, but it's not wild and a solid pace-up spot for them. Mark Williams, though, I do like a little bit at 8,200. He's risky, but as long as he continues to see 30-plus minutes in a matchup that I'm not overly concerned about, I like him. So I put a 2% min on Mark Williams. A little bit of a leverage play, but yeah, I think it's a good spot. Next up, we have the Pacers going up against the Hornets. This is the side of the ball where they actually really do see a soft matchup. No real injury news that concern me too much, but let me double check, make sure I'm not missing anything. Matherin's out. That does carry a little bit of weight. Jay, who are you looking at here from the Pacers?
So on the Pacers side, I have way more Pacers than I do for the Hornets. So kind of right now, I have a couple of Tyrese in there. Siakam is, I put a kind of a 5 min on time on Siakam right now. I even went as low as Jarris Walker. I got about 2% on Jarris Walker on there. So I'm kind of using them as just to get into that cute category for leverage. So I even went down to Obi Toppin, to be honest. Obi. Yeah, I went a little desperate there.
I hear you. Brandon, are you looking at any of these guys?
Yeah, I'm sticking to my usual strategy here. When this team is in a soft matchup, I target the trio. So 15% mid on Hallie, 5% on Turner, and 5% on Siakam, and I moved on. Definitely don't hate taking some shots on some of these turds, though, and that kind of applies for a lot of these games where if you're playing true to the spread, there's going to be a lot of turds that pop off. So definitely don't hate that strategy either.
Yeah, and David, TJ does see a bit more run in those blowout scenarios, if that's what you're taking a shot on. He's not a bad play today at 4K, but he's not someone I'm seeing show up too much yet. I have a 16% min on Halliburton, just trying to make sure I don't have to think about him anymore today. I have a 10% min on Siakam. I like being over the field on him. And then Miles Turner, I just never get overly excited about, but I'll put a 6% min just in case, so I'm not sitting in the corner upset that I didn't have exposure. Bigs against the Hornets. It's not hard to talk me into that ever.
Yep.
Next up, we have the lowest total game on the slate. Miami Heat going up against the Celtics. Miami, at this point, Wiggins is out, so we don't have to worry about him. That's why we've seen Larson performing pretty well over the last few games. Duncan Robinson is out. That's really the only two pieces or players that are worth talking about at this point. Brandon, who are you taking shots on, if anybody?
No one. I do not like this game at all.
Yeah, Jay.
Especially the Heat's up.
Yeah, are things different for you, Jay?
Yeah, just two people, to be honest, and it's just so I could fill in some slots, and it's Tyler Hero and Bam, like 2%. That's about it, but I don't like this game at all.
Yeah, low ownership, like having a little bit of exposure here is not crazy. I like Larson. He's been good. He has had two really soft matchups against Philadelphia and Washington, but at no ownership, 4,300, seeing decent minutes, I'm willing to take a shot. So I put a 3% min on him. Nothing too crazy. Next up, we have the Celtics. And for Boston today, they have not the best matchup, but the Heat haven't been scary really this season. Drew Holiday is... Oh, I was looking at the wrong page. Let's see. For Boston, Jaylen Brown is questionable. Drew Holiday is questionable. And Porzingis is questionable as well. We need to get this news to really know if we're going to take any shots on the Celtics tonight. But with what we know, are you seeing any of these guys pop for you, Jay?
Yeah, so right now the only person I'm taking a shot on is Tatum. And that's if with any news pending that I might stay on it. But right now I got 10% Tatum because even though it's going to be a low-scoring game, Tatum going to get his. But at that price, I'm not willing to go more than 10% on Tatum.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, this side of the ball, it's a wait-and-see approach. If everybody plays, I won't be touching anyone here. If Porzingis or Brown is out, then I'll come back and reconsider. Definitely Jason Tatum for sure. But depending on who's out will determine who else I would take a shot on.
Yeah. I need money. I'm with you. I'm on Porzingis as long as he plays. I have a 2 to 3% min on him. I'm still kind of going back and forth on those numbers, and it will only increase if we get more guys ruled out. Don't love the matchup, but he's been solid, and at his price tag, he's shown he has plenty of upside, so he's someone I just want to force at least a little bit of exposure to, but again, gross game, not trying to get too cute there. Next up, we have the Jazz going up against the Rockets. We already know Kessler and Crew are playing, so they're relatively healthy at this point, which made the Jazz untouchable for me tonight. Brandon, are you looking at any of these guys?
Nope.
Are you, Jay?
Outside of George, not really. George is the
Okay, and
only one now popping up.
how much Keontae are you seeing show up?
I'm about 7%.
Okay, 7%. Hey, Dixon, appreciate you. If you all could hit the like button, would appreciate it. If not, that sucks, but it's okay. Next up, we have the Rockets side of it, where things are a little bit more interesting. Again, Fred VanVleet is officially out. Soft matchup against the Jazz. Jay, or who are you seeing show up, or who do you like?
So right now, I like a lot on this side of the field. Sangam, Green are my two highest, but I'm about 19% on Sangam right now. So I might even have some more because I really like this side of the field on Sangam.
What about you, Brandon? Who are you seeing show up?
Definitely like Şengün and Jalen Green quite a bit. I have a 20% min on both of those guys. With VanVleet now out, I'm reconsidering some of these other guys. I'm not sure if I want to go to Amin now, but I'm imagining they slide him at the point guard position now, and we've seen him in this spot before, and that's usually kind of when he has his ceiling game, so he'll be someone I consider. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and put a 5% man on Eason. He's just somebody that just kind of stood out that I missed earlier, and double check with the sim model. He's popping big time over there as well. So 3% ownership. He's broken many slates before in the past, so definitely somebody I don't want to forget about in this spot.
Yeah, and I don't think we missed him on the sim. I think it's the Fred VanVleet news just boosted him on the sim because he was not popping like this earlier.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of feel like the ownership is going to be a little bit higher than 3%. We'll see.
I might be 10% to be honest.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me. What about you, Jay? Are you looking at these guys a little bit closer? I know you touched on like Şengün and Green. Are you thinking about maybe Eason or Amin at all now?
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about them now because as y'all were talking, I went ahead and put a 7% on Eason because again with that news, I know I even went as far as having 2% of Dylan Brooks. I know he's the enemy right now, but Brooks gotta have his game. Like at 5,400, he gotta do something.
Hey, if he doesn't show up for me naturally, I'll just be happy for y'all. I can't force him. If he's seeing any ownership, that's going to be a pass for me. My favorite game on the slate is this next one. The Atlanta Hawks going up against the Mavericks. High total game. I think it's the highest total, and it has the closest spread, which is something we can't say about any other game on this slate. From the Hawks side of things, at this point, there's not really a ton of injury news that moved the needle for me. Let's double check, see if there's anything we're missing. Yeah, there's not really anything new here. Brandon, are you liking these guys as much as I do?
A few of them. So I have a 20% man on Trey. He's just been playing really well, and anytime he's in the highest game total on the slate, we just play him and move on. Dyson, I'll say it again. I'm going to keep forcing him in. He smashed last time out. Still at a decent price for the way he's been playing. So like him quite a bit. I was getting a little bit of Levert, but again, he's somebody I never really care to force in. So if I'm somewhere near here, I'm okay with that. Definitely someone I don't want to go too heavy on. And then Ricochet, he's super volatile, but just due to this matchup, I wanted to make sure he was in the mix as well. And then, of course, I thought about Okongwu, but didn't end up getting to him. I just like other centers a bit more tonight.
Yeah. Jay, what about you? You like any of these guys?
Yeah, so definitely Trae Young. I'm gonna try to force some exposure to this because for Trae in a close-up game like this, we really got to pick on him and kind of see what he does. But Karis LeVert is about 9% for me. And it's interesting what you said about I can't pronounce the name, so I'm gonna call him Oko. I was really thinking about him, but he didn't come up for me, so I'm gonna kind of put about 5% on him. And Zach, I got about 5% on Zach too that I forced because for this to be this close and ownership, I don't know if it's gonna change, but there's not a lot of ownership in this game, and this could be a sneaky one. So
yeah, I think Trey's ownership is the only one. Oh shit, we're getting all the Celtics news right now. I think Trey's ownership is maybe the only one that will go up from here, just because as we get more value, people will be able to pay up for him more and more. So I have a 30% min on Trey, just trying to make sure. Again, I don't want to think about him anymore. I like this spot. I like the matchup. He's been good, so he's a focal point for me. Ricochet is a leverage play for me tonight. All the Celtics are out. This is gonna be crazy. He's a leverage play for me, 4,700. I might, depending on what the news is, I haven't had a chance to look at it too closely. I might not need to force exposure to him anymore, but I do still like this game environment, so I'll have at least 6% worst case scenario. And then Okongwu, let me see. I need to actually know what the Celtics news is at this point. Al Horford is out. Drew Holiday is out. Kristaps Porzingis is out. Yeah, we're going to have center value. So I was going to make him a leverage play. I still like the spot and matchup for him, so I'm going to have a 5% min on him instead of the 10 I had originally. Looks like Jaylen Brown's is available to play, though, so that's nice. So I'll keep the 12% min on Ricochet, and then Okongwu will just have that 5% min. Daniels is interesting. I love this game, so I'm going to – what do you have on him, Brandon? 15? Yeah, I'll put a 15% min on him as well. And then Karis LeVert, I think I'm just biased on because of his – Cleveland time where he didn't really do a lot. So I'm just going to let the DS give me that exposure. For the Dallas side of things going up against Atlanta, Jay, are you seeing any of these guys show up for you?
So right now, I am. Okay. No, I don't have anybody above really 10%, but when it comes to kind of Najee, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, I'm about 8% on both of them. I'm in all three of them. So I even went as low as Jaden Hardy too. So I got about 5% of Jaden Hardy. So I got a couple of pieces from this game that I like.
Yeah, you're taking some shots on some of the value guys here. I get it too. I like the environment, so I don't hate it. I have a 16% min on Spencer Dinwiddie. I am going to increase that to 20% just to kind of keep some leverage on him. Anthony Davis is also a leverage play for me, but probably like my least favorite out of the leverage plays. But again, that means absolutely nothing. So 15% min there. And then that's pretty much it for the Mavs for me. Brandon, are you seeing things differently here?
I do like the Dinwiddie call quite a bit. I might actually bump him up to 15. I won't go quite as high, but we love playing guards against this team. And another guy who's popping on the sim model. He's been really solid too. So definitely like him quite a bit. Can't get down with 80. He's barely playing 30 minutes and hasn't shown any reason for me to play him at this price. Hardy is popping a bit more, so definitely don't mind if he shows up in the mix. And I almost got really desperate and forced in some Klay just because I feel like there's somebody else on this side of the ball who could go crazy unexpectedly. And I had a gut feeling it's Klay, but I kind of talked some sense into myself and didn't do that. So,
hey, well, Jay would have been with you.
Hey, I'll be with you right there.
Christie is another value play who's popping a bit more too. I haven't reran since the PJ Washington news, but he's another value play I wouldn't mind if I was getting around this 5%.
Okay. And we're getting a little tight on time here, so I'll just kind of focus now moving forward on guys that we're forcing exposure to. This next game is part of why I want to do that because all of these guys show up a lot by themselves for the Spurs because Sohan's out, because Vassell is out, Keldon Johnson's questionable. A lot of options here in a pretty soft matchup these days against the Nuggets. Brandon, who are you forcing exposure to here who's not showing up by themselves?
Definitely wanted to make sure I got Biyombo and Wesley. They're really, really, really cheap and should play a lot of minutes, and just two guys I didn't want to fall out of my lines.
Yep. I have a 15% min on Biyombo. Don't love it, but it just is the way it is. And then I have a 10% min on Wesley as well. 3,200 is just really cheap and a pretty soft matchup. Jay, anyone that you didn't see that you forced exposure to, or what's your thought process here?
The only person I had a forced exposure to was really Castle, because I wasn't getting that much of Castle. I don't know why, but I bumped him up. Maybe it's because I'm forcing everything else to the late hammer, but Castle, I had to force some exposure to Castle. That's about it. But everybody else, I'm getting pretty much good amount of for this game.
Yeah, Sandro, Julian, Castle, those are guys who are all showing up for me by themselves. Even Harrison Barnes was showing up. Chris Paul, who I don't love, is showing up a little bit as well. And Keldon Johnson's a strong play if he plays tonight too. Anyone else we didn't touch on here that's worth mentioning?
No, pretty much almost this entire team is in play.
Yeah. And speaking of entire teams that are in play, the Nuggets are a lot of players who more than likely won't play tonight. Jokic is questionable. Murray is questionable. Michael Porter Jr. is questionable. Brown is questionable, as is Peyton Watson. I'm halfway tempted to just go ahead and force a shit ton of exposure to Russell Westbrook and then have a little bit of exposure to some of these late games. But Brandon or Jay, what are you doing here with the Nuggets? Who are you seeing, or who do you like?
So, on the Nuggets, the only person I really have high exposure to is Jokic, but I'm kind of trying to make sure he's in my utility spot, because if he don't play, I gotta be able to swap out real quick. But besides that, Murray and Gordon is the only one that but I'm not even higher than 5% on the other two. Jokic right now is the only one from this game that I'm really playing.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, it's Jokic, and I moved on. I just can't do anything with all this news we're waiting for.
Yeah, and that was a good point, Jay. Like, Jokic is showing up primarily in my utility spot just naturally. So I'm not going to go ahead and force a ton of Westbrook exposure right now just because of how much Jokic is showing up in my lines. I'm at about 50% ownership. And so that's good leverage if he plays, and then a lot of flexibility in my lines if he doesn't. Last game on the slate, we have the Pistons going up against the Thunder. Gross game, to be honest. But, Brandon, are you seeing any of these Pistons show up, especially with Cade Cunningham doubtful?
Yeah, Paul Reed is showing up a decent amount. Stewart got himself suspended yet again. So especially if you think this game is going to blow out, which there's a high chance it does, Paul Reed should definitely be able to crush this 3,100 price tag. Azar showing up a decent amount, and Schroeder was too, but he fell quite a bit. So I'm definitely happy being under here because I do not like this matchup for him at all.
It's tough. He'll be one of those guys who, if it does blow out, might leave a little early. Jay, what about you? You like any of the Pistons tonight?
Yeah, so definitely Paul Reed, of course, because again, that price tag is ridiculous. But Dennis Schroeder and Tobias Harris is there's two that I'm forcing exposure to, especially if it's a shutout. They're gonna get some burns and they're gonna try to keep it close. And Tobias Harris is pretty much too low on, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump on that price tag right there and trying to get some Tobias Harris in.
Yeah, I like that call, especially with Cade out. We've seen him have stronger performances here. The matchup's brutal, but I also have a 5% min on Harris. I have a 5% min on Tim Hardaway Jr. He's really cheap. He's a low points per minute guy, but as long as this game stays close, he has a chance of getting there for us. So I just wanted to add him into the mix. And then outside of that, Paul Reed, I'm over the field on. Schroeder, I'm over the field on. But again, I'm hoping with some of that Celtics news, he'll go down a little bit. Asar Thompson, I'm right at field weight exposure, and I am willing to force a min to make sure I stay right around field weight. And then that's pretty much it for me. The Thunder side of things is interesting as well, just because they do have a very soft matchup here. OKC, they're pretty healthy at this point. Aaron Wiggins is out, but that's not enough to really change anything. Caruso is questionable, same story. Jalen Williams with an LIN is questionable. Jay, who are you forcing exposure to here?
So I'm kind of forcing him a little bit of exposure to Shea, but not too much though, especially at that price tag. If it's a blowout, he might sit. But right now, Jalen Williams and Holmgren is people that I want at least 10 to 15% of, because again, somebody got to play. So, and I got a couple of scrubs like Casey Wallace, Isaiah Joe, because again, the minutes are going to be there, but I'm not going above the field on Shea Alexander.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, this team never excites me when everyone is healthy. So I just put a 10% min on SGA like I normally do and moved on.
Yeah, I have an 8% min on SGA, 3% min on Isaiah Joe, and called it a day. Let's see. Power, that's the right move. I also am going to force a little bit of exposure to Jalen Martin with Colby Jones out. He's projecting better, so ideally he will show up in a few more lines naturally, and we won't have to force too much exposure. I need money, said Denver line bumped up, so at least one of the big names probably in. I hope so. SGA going to make an MVP statement tonight to follow up what Joker did yesterday. We'll see. But that's pretty much, well, let's do a quick look at the Celtics and see who's popping there, just so we can do a brief overview on that. For me, they're not projecting overly well, at least right now. They're still 15 minutes. Jay, anyone kind of come to mind for you that you like a little bit more after this news? Or Brandon, anyone stand out for you?
I didn't have any Tatum before, but I'm just going to go ahead and put a 5% min on him. That's about it for me.
Yeah. Right now it's really just Tatum, and I got about 4% of White just in case. Mm-hmm. That's about it. And that's just for like a leverage play a little bit. But Tatum is really my main focus on that team.
Yeah. I have a 10% min on Tatum, and that's not even me trying to get leverage. I just think his ownership's going to go up, so just trying to match the field on what it could be. We'll see if we update ownership before that. But that's pretty much everything, y'all. We'll be back tomorrow. Good luck tonight. Look forward to hopefully celebrating in the chat. Y'all be safe. Talk to you soon.